Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another Star Wars spoiler review, the massive spoiler review run I'm going to be doing leading up to the Obi-Wan series at the end of May. So I already wrapped up Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which you can check out my thoughts on that film on the YouTube channel, youtube.com slash Talkative Carl. Smash that like button, show your support, of course. Yeah, let's get right to it. I'm gonna go through the story first, then I'm gonna start going over my bullet points of my notes that kind of stuff that stand out to me as I rewatched this after all this time. Now we all have like a good perspective of everything Lucas was trying to do. So, Queen Amidala, not queen anymore, but stepped down to be a senator. Her standee Joy gets, at least I think that's a droid or actual human being, but if it was a human being, she would have been like blown to bits. So, I don't know. It was weird. I think it was actually human because the way she was like all sorrowful, you would think like she wouldn't feel that strongly if it was just a droid that can easily be repaired. But that part was kind of confusing. To this day, it's always been confusing. That has to be a person. Knowing that like these assassination attempts by these bounty hunters are escalating, the Jedi Council thought, or at least Palpatine, who still everybody, we all know as Sidious, but because people wondering like, okay, how does these powerful Jedi, especially Mace Windu and Yoda, can like be so blinded by being in the same room as a Dark Lord of the Sith? And I surmise is that because he is that powerful. He's about as powerful as arguably Yoda. And as we see in another scene when like Kenobi is trying to sneak around a planet spying on Dooku, it's like Dragon Ball Z and their power levels. You can easily, bring it down to an unrecognizable level, so that way you can be like hidden. Because any flare up, of course, any Jedi in the vicinity can easily detect it. So, depending on how your mastery of the Force is, you can, especially if you've been around the block as long as these three probably have, you probably learn how to mask your powers a bit, so that way you can avoid detection. That's my, how I view it. I think that is kind of logically sound. So, Kenobi and Anakin return back. It's been 10 years. Now he's appropriate age to fool around with Padme, even though it's still freaking gross because it's like, you could be old enough to be your babysitter or your older sister, but you still like, as soon as you turn 18, you ready to like boink her. It's, Star Wars is weird when it comes to like people who might be slightly related or like inappropriate age to the very minute of being right age, right, to just do whatever. It's kind of all over the place. It's like whatever in this kind of society in the future. And you get to see like, we don't get to see like, Anakin's early on training with Kenobi, but you get just from the dialogue itself, as stilted as some of the dialogue here and there has been in the prequel trilogy, you still get a hint that Anakin and Kenobi built through some stuff. They build up a rapport. Kenobi mentions how like normally calm and cool and collected Anakin usually is when engaged in a situation. But as soon as he comes back and he's about to meet Padme again after 10 years and not seeing her, he's sweating. And, I'm pretty sure he's like, because Jedi are, at least in like the original doctrination, needs to avoid attachments. But that's the whole point of recruiting them for such a younger than even when they first met Anakin. He they normally bring in infants that would be more like acceptable to like the training and used to avoiding attachments and what have you. Anakin already had like a very set attachment, especially towards his mother. And then when you mix that with puberty, that's another thing. You mix that with puberty, that's a whole nother thing. And that's why in my previous video mentioning how like if Qui-Gon was alive, Qui-Gon is like a father figure to both Kenobi and Anakin. Anakin and Kenobi are pretty much like just brothers, more so than mentor and mentee. And if Kenobi would have gone through, taking a little bit, like another year with Qui-Gon before going through those supposed Jedi trials, he would have had like the proper mastery of how to handle a Padawan so he can properly deal with what Anakin is dealing with. Because as soon as they, meet Padme, Qui-Gon, it's kind of like, well, both people are wrong in this, situation. Kenobi is wrong for like chastising and dressing down Anakin in front of Padme and like, her, little, handmaids or whatever, right in front of them. And Anakin, just in response, and not only defiance, but in response, and just want to show off the fact that, he's 18. Like, I want to show this pretty girl that, it's like the testosterone, all that stuff, that feelings that like boys get when they want to feel like a man, and you don't want to look like, some kid, especially a girl looking dumb in front of the girl that you are feeling with. Of course, it's like, Anakin just outright just like, why, what, and just giving like Kenobi complete, just attitude, but like questioning him more so, which Kenobi sees as defiance, because it's like, it kind of turns his head like, what the hell are you talking about, talking to me like that? It's like they both were wrong, but it's like they both could have handled that situation better. And it could have been best that Kenobi did not, just like I said, just, tear him down in front of everybody the way he did. Even though he probably did not mean to, that's what happened. It's palpable in the room. It made Anakin uncomfortable, and Anakin had no, it's in his mindset at his age, had no course of action but to respond in the way he did. And that kind of more so set the stage to what he ultimately becomes, because like with the non-attachments, the feelings is erupting, and it's like his connection to the Force is so strong, and like Kenobi's inexperience in handling a Padawan, especially a Padawan of this skill level, that because normally the power scaling, is a little imbalanced. It's like, as Kenobi at this stage is like, he's at a level, but he's teaching a kid who's probably S rank kind of level, and he's doing the best he could, but he's like, he's just like not handling that well, especially the way he talks to Anakin, which kind of like forces Anakin to bite his lip in front of him half the time. But it's like, you get that feelings festering, like, and doesn't help with Palpatine inflaming his ego, that kind of like, forces Anakin to do these brash acts to prove how great he is, because it will help if Kenobi actually gives some words of support, and not only wisdom but support, emotional support. It's like, you're not as great as you think, but you are getting there. I see your skills. I trust you to handle this and blah blah blah. But the way Kenobi is handling it isn't that strong. So they want like what is it called? Like, not the Trade Federation, but like well, the Galactic Republic, wants a army to take on the Separatists. However, they still sending like these assassins. So the assassins are not done. They trying to send these little poisonous leeches, through Padme's bedroom window. But you can see the skill of like Anakin Skywalker, and just to like use his lightsaber to cut down these little poisonous worms that's literally about to be near Padme's face, and with sweet precision, he knocked those things off, and those lightsabers like inches close to her face, and he just be able to like surgical precision, just woo woo. And then it's just like a awesome moment when like they are chasing down this assassin, this changeling. However, you also get to see more instances where with Kenobi further chastising and not supporting Anakin with it's kind of like almost like a nag in a way on the car chase scene. And it's like, I don't like when you do this. You completely missed it. You went the completely other way. You should have followed it. It's like, it's like the nagging. You can see the pain on Anakin's face. And now kudos to Hayden Christensen. And I'm glad he's getting another shot at this, because George Lucas wasn't doing a good job, unfortunately, with directing these people. And these are all awesome actors. And it's just like they're trying their best given what the material that they had. And you can at least see on Anakin's face that like the pain and disgust. I mean, we all been there when we getting like chastised and nagged to death, but we cannot say nothing, especially if it's like our parents or something like that. And even like, Anakin later in the scene is like, I'm sorry, Master. Sure, Master. And it's like, he just forced to like submit. He's a very you have to be, like a great warrior has to be forced to submit to someone who he feels like it is his lesser in a way, but a lesser that he respects, but he more and more is having disdain for. And it's like if you like a father, Master Kenobi, then why don't you listen to me? And it's like, God, it's like Kenobi is like, wow, he's really like, and you can see like, I hope in like the Kenobi series you get to look, because like I just found out that like we think like Hayden Christensen is only going to show up as Vader one time throughout this limited series, but no, it's been stated that he's going to be showing up in like at least once in every 6 episode, which I'm excited for. I'm glad you get a little bit more with him and just the dynamic. Maybe not, we only get to see maybe him and Kenobi, in a scene together fighting possibly one time, possibly at the end of the season, but it's just like they're for the most part been separated. That lead them together with another fight that I'm surmising not only brings Kenobi horror to what his Padawan, his friend, his brother looks like now, but also the dread that now he's on a whole nother level that me having the high ground ain't gonna mean shit at this point. And he's probably gonna he's definitely gonna narrowly probably escape this situation, because Vader at this point will easily slice up, Kenobi down without question. Because especially after 10 years goes by and he's been like up in his game since then, while Kenobi has probably been recluse and masking his Jedi powers and probably not practicing as much. So his skill level has probably had, remained stagnant at best, while Vader's power just elevates through that time. And it's like a funny little moment in this bar scene where it's like, to this day, still cracks me up. It's like, do you want to buy some death sticks? You don't want to sell me death sticks. I don't want to sell you death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life. I want to go home and rethink my life. I was like, God, it gets me a chuckle every time I see that scene. And of course, this next little callbacks with like, the assassin getting her arm chopped off, trying to be reminiscent to like the cantina scene in New Hope. Before she ends up ratting out the bounty hunter who hired her, it was Jango Fett, but obviously he sent like a dart through her, like a poison dart through her neck, so she wouldn't talk. And the Senate decides, okay, Padme's not safe here. She needs to hide out until this whole situation is resolved. That's where Kenobi comes in to investigate, where the dart come from, which we find out is from a symbol that comes from this planet of Kamino, where you see these tall white aliens. But while Anakin and Padme is remaining undercover, but Anakin's keeping a watchful eye over her. But at the same time, their relationship is building. Even though, yes, behind the scenes, the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen wasn't good at all. Which is unfortunate. You will think. I mean, kudos to them because they still remain professional through and through. Because they are professionals, because not everybody's going to like each other on set, which is a shame. Because you want to make sure that you had that camaraderie on set that kind of spill over into the scenes, but they still maintain their composure while on filming. But it's just like, it's obvious that even before we find out about the things didn't gel behind the scenes, we can still kind of tell, even though we didn't know yet, but we still kind of tell that their scenes seem stilted, and and dialogue didn't help, but the chemistry just was not there. But then of course you get the iconic line, "I hate sand. It's coarse, rough, it's irritating, and it gets everywhere." And it's like, I laugh because now it's a meme, and it's like, you kind of chuckle. And it's like, I remember asking people, if there's a celebrity you want to troll, if you can pick a celebrity you want to troll so badly, I want to just troll Hayden Christensen by leaving a big bag of sand in front of his doorstep of his home, and just and run away. It's kind of like, ring the doorbell and run away, and he open the door when he sees this big bag of sand, and it's like, just, I feel, part of me feels bad because it's he's been through a lot, but God, it's just so doggone funny every time I think of it. And it's he hates sand, and it's just not spilling everywhere, but you just, but you see it's obviously like a big bag of sand. It's just, I don't know. We all got a celebrity we just want to mess with, just for the fun of it. Hayden Christensen is one of mine, because he's making it so damn easy. But despite the non-chemistry going on, they're trying to build the relationship to where in like I said earlier, Anakin does not know how to process those emotions because he's a hormonal teenager, and Padme is already like arguably in her like mid 20s at this point. So she's fairly mature. And she can't help but see certain immaturities in Anakin, but there's something about him that does spark an interest that, later evolves into something, even though it's not something to idolize whatsoever. But there's certain moments when like Anakin gives her looks that comes off creepy and like very Me Too-ish, and it's like, ugh. And I was like, dude, you make my skin crawl. Tone it down. It's like, I know you got a huge boner for her, but like, just dial it back a bit. And I kind of wish like this is where Kenobi would step in and like a reasonable older brother would instruct him about how like to properly conduct himself around females. But the old ways, because Kenobi is still lockstep into the by the book code of the Jedi Order, and he did not fully embrace Qui-Gon's teachings to the fullest. It's like arguably to the fullest, not fully, maybe, because Kenobi got to go his own way. But it's like he did not take to heart, I should say, Qui-Gon's teachings fully, because Qui-Gon would allow Anakin to like, embrace these feelings, but like properly manage it. So Kenobi goes to Kamino, this big rainy planet, which we see in the Bad Batch, which I'm glad we harken back to it. I'm pretty sure we saw it in Clone Wars series at some point too, but it was more fresh in the Bad Batch season. Then the Kaminoans, I think that's what the race is called, a very sterile looking area too. They bring up the this Jedi called Sifo Dyas, who apparently has been dead for a Jedi Master who's been dead for a long time, who placed this order and of these clone armies for the Republic, which nobody, and like you see later on, Kenobi brings it to the council, but nobody's aware of any clone army. Later, we find out that Dooku, commissioned this order by way of Sidious, but they use the DNA from Jango Fett to build this, army and, get them trained and so forth. But they keep they all spawn individuality, as we see in the Clone Wars series and the Bad Batch. But he keeps clone for himself, unaltered or anything like that, and allowed to grow in a natural pace, which will turn out to be Boba Fett. And you see this little standoff between like Jango and Kenobi, where they're sizing each other up in one moment, and then they taking each other down in the ring, which is awesome fight. And it's like it's a fight that just with fists, and and it's like just mano a mano almost, and it's like it's almost just as good as if they was actually using weapons the whole time. And the rain setting kind of insinuates like the just like the overall like Jedi versus a Mandalorian. Kenobi follows Jango to his other planet. Oh, what's that planet called? Geonosis. Now, during this moment, like Anakin's getting his nightmares about his mother being in trouble. He and Padme go back to Tatooine, find out that Watto sold Shmi off to this guy named Clegg Lars, who is the father of uh, Owen, Uncle Owen, later to be known Uncle Owen, and his girlfriend at that time, Beru. And this makes, Owen and Anakin stepbrothers. And he finds out that Tusken's kidnapped Smee on doing like a raid, and she's been gone for weeks, which he only has one leg, so he couldn't, get out there with like the search party, because there was it was like a search party of like a few dozen, and only like 4 came back, something like that. So this kind of led him to believe that she might be dead at this point. But Anakin wasn't having it. He goes out, finds the camp where the Tuskens are, finds his mother. They had a nice little exchange before she passes away. Mentioned how like she's so proud of him. He grew up to be a very handsome guy. And like it's just like a shame that she passes away, and like it's like little by little, and you can see like the pain because at certain moments we hear that Vader thing every once in a while, especially after he goes to tell Padme what he's done to the camp. It's like you hear that, Vader dun 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 dun, and it's like God, that just the looming presence is in his, it's kind of like his dark side is his alter ego just forming, because like little by little, his anchors to his soul is being chipped away, either by him or by outside forces, and it's like the Jedi Council or even Kenobi isn't helping, at least not really helping, because he's trying to avoid all attachments, but it's his attachments that probably would have made him an even better Jedi, like we see in Luke Skywalker later on. It's the attachments that make him strong, not weak. But that's ultimately like the Jedi's downfall during this trilogy. And it's just the pain. Like, kudos to Hayden Christensen from just the expression. Look throughout from Clone Wars and the Revenge of the Sith. If you revisit these films, just try to focus especially when something serious happens, look on Hayden Christensen's face. It informs a lot of what's going on in his mind. Sometimes the dialogue helps, sometimes it doesn't, but you gotta pay attention to the face. That's a mark of a great actor, when like you can just, he can express a lot through the face that sometimes the dialogue wouldn't cut it. And man, the look on his face, the utter dread, the anger, the bubbling rage, that button that just been pushed, and he just like go full horror movie. Like I said, if this was a horror movie, because you already seen like a couple of heads getting lopped off here, you already get a lot of limbs getting lopped off in the Star Wars franchise, but just like if they allow that to play out and just see, because he mentions like, I butchered them like animals, and not just the men, the women and the children. And it's like, you can see that from the Revenge of the Sith. Like, he's a fucking child murderer. He's a mass murderer. He's a serial killer by all intents and purposes. Anakin Skywalker, even though he saved the galaxy and bring balance to the Force in Return of the Jedi, eventually, like it was prophesied from Phantom Menace, he cut a bloody path for such a long time to eventually get to that point. And it just adds to the utter tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, in my opinion. I think a lot of people's opinion. So he brings Smee's body back to Lars's place where they hold a funeral, and you can hear like Anakin just say the words like, "I wasn't strong enough for you. I wasn't strong enough to save you, Mom, but I won't fail next time." Cause like that's Anakin's dream. He wants to not, he wants to save the. Ultimately, he wants to be a hero. He wants to save the world. He doesn't. He wants to end suffering. But the tragedy of that is he will cause suffering in his ultimate, because he has different goals. Vader has different goals, especially if you read the comic books. He has completely different goals from what the goals are with Sidious. He wants to usurp Sidious to bring order to the galaxy. So that way, because he's still got a little bit of Anakin in him, that it's just that little philosophy is just twisted. He wants to bring order by ruling with an iron fist in a way, but he still wants to make sure he ends suffering. And like anybody who steps out of line, he's the executioner to make sure that everybody stays in line, which is just like, it's just gut wrenching. Then like Padme and Anakin, which also relates to the council, this report with Kenobi, who's tracked down the bounty hunter, and he found out that like the Trade Federation and other people are working with Count Dooku. But then he gets captured, and then you find out that Dooku is played by Christopher Plummer, the late Christopher Plummer, who was the Jedi Master of Qui-Gon. And you get to see where Qui-Gon's teaching come from. Because even though Dooku was ultimately led to the dark side, he still kind of maintained, because unlike other Sith Lords, there's no grotesque appearance, there's no discoloration of the eyes. He still managed to maintain some part of the light side in him to keep him like, that's why he probably like still managed to overpower Anakin and Kenobi in the later scenes, because he, when it comes to straight on dark Sith Lords, no question, they usually come out on top. But this guy was like, even though he's assisting with Sidious in his plots, he managed to, at his core, maintain himself, and like maybe 60% of dark side and 40% light side in his overall core at this point, in my mind. And that's why he still managed to maintain himself against even like almost at a stalemate with Yoda. Even though he probably will ultimately have lost, he managed to know like, okay, I might lose in this. I need a distraction, but like he still held his own against the Yoda of all people. And it's like, but the philosophies and the mindset he has, he obviously taught some of that to Qui-Gon. But Qui-Gon managed to maintain, he questions the council multiple times, he still maintained his beliefs that, yes, Jedi, practice compassion to all life, but he will willingly step in any crisis if he feels like he's needed. Unlike having to force, do the asking or whatever like that. It's like any superhero in like a comic book, where it's like if something goes wrong, he will step in and not just, just like, I want to say like, remain like stagnant or like to themselves until somebody asks. But it's just, the Jedi don't, as they mentioned before, it's like we're peacekeepers. We're not like soldiers until like the Clone Wars, commemorate. But you know what? Because my drift, like, they for a longest time remain peacekeepers. They're not like warriors, or they're not soldiers, or like active aggressors. So like Qui-Gon is one of the few Jedi's is take like an active role in his teachings, rather than being on the defensive or passive. So you can see the parallels between Dooku and Qui-Gon. And, Dooku brings up about, Sidious, and, he wants to usurp Sidious, because there's only two Sith, a master and an apprentice. There's never more than two, no more, no less. That's always been when it comes to the dark side, because it was a lot of them millennia ago, but it's always infighting and power struggles. So at a certain point, I think it was Darth Raven who, or at least one of the original Dark Lords, petitioned that there should be only two Dark Siths, one master, one apprentice, no more, no less, just to avoid imploding in on themselves. So Dooku wants to usurp Sidious. A lot of these guys want to usurp their masters rather than naturally progressing. They're power hungry at the end of the day. But, he's trying to entice Kenobi. He wasn't buying what Dooku was selling. Then Padme and Anakin going Geonosis tried to help. They end up getting captured, so they go into this. All three end up in this kind of arena, about to be attacked by these wild animals, until the Jedi step in, and you see Mace Windu, Sam Jackson's just cool ass walk, just put his blade up against in front of Jango Fett, and just like the sheer presence of Sam Jackson, just like zero fucks given. Like, I can mow all of you down if I wanted to. It's not a issue for me. But then, ensuing fight occurs. Then, Deus Ex Machina with the clone army, led by Yoda. And so you see like a little bit of like the plans for the Death Star. Like, it's having been like, it's been like thought up, but the building hasn't begun yet. We'll find out about that in Rogue One. But a nice little teaser at that time. When I was a little kid, like seeing that, I was like, oh my God, the Death Star plans. But then it's on to a fight. Mace Windu chops off Jango Fett's head, which sowed the seeds for Boba Fett to lead him on his path to become one of the greatest bounty hunters that ever lived. We'll see his progression in the Clone Wars series, and then obviously the Book of Boba Fett. I have a lot to say about the Book of Boba Fett, but I wanted to save it until like I get through all these in order. So, they go after Dooku, who's trying to escape. Kenobi and Anakin managed to catch up. They trying to take him on. And of course, like, Anakin's like completely enraged. He's ready to like just hash it out right here and now. And he's getting blinded by his anger. And he gets zapped by Force lightning. Kenobi's not a match for him. Anakin gets right arm chopped off, as per use for the Skywalker boys. Then Yoda intercedes and helps stave off Dooku's assault, but he managed to make an escape. The movie ends on another bittersweet tone, where it's like, Yoda announces the Clone Wars beginning. As we see, once we get to I'm going to go through each season of the Clone Wars before we lead into the Revenge of the Sith. So, Probably it's gonna be like a. I'm trying to get as much as I can to do, at least hopefully, at most 2 seasons per week. But I'll probably get to jump on it, if not tonight, tomorrow at some point, so I can by some point next week have at least season 1 at the ready for review. But I want to try to make sure I get enough of those done, because I think there's 8 seasons of those. I want to get enough of those done so that way I can get right back into Revenge of the Sith. So like and also the fact that like Padme and Anakin get married with only C-3PO and R2-D2 as their witnesses kind of ends on a somber note. It's supposed to be a happy occasion, and it kind of, because they can't, they have to be married in secret, because each one cannot be I think she can, but not to a Jedi, and a Jedi definitely cannot form that kind of level of attachment at all. But you can see like the looming threat over the horizon, leading to his ultimate downfall in Revenge of the Sith. And that ends like the Clone Wars movie. Got a couple of notes here I want to make sure I bring up so I don't forget to mention. All right, let's mention that. Oh yeah, the Tuskens. I did watch like the Book of Boba Fett and like the Tusken Raiders. Obviously, there's like different tribes apparently, but for the longest time, up until the point of the Book of Boba Fett, we all were under the assumption that the Tusken Raiders have been like just kind of like barbarians, and in the Book of Boba Fett they're treated like very sympathetic just raiders, and it's like I don't know, man. It's just like maybe there's like a few good Tusken camps out there, but by and large it's like I'm pretty sure there's like just living out a hard life. They do very like bad things, so it's like hard to disassociate yourself from what you know for such a long time, and this dramatic shift kind of really turns your like worldview of them upside down. Oh yeah, and like when Anakin like starts mowing down those Tuskens in that camp, Yoda feels it all the way in Coruscant, and it's like there's a moment, if you pay attention, I'm pretty sure you all hear it, but you pay attention, you hear Qui-Gon's voice screaming, "No, Anakin!" And it's like, to me, I feel that's Qui-Gon's Force Ghost witnessing the horrors that his young pupil that he brought into this life completely going awry to his dread. And that just like you feel because Yoda hasn't learned that skill yet. Qui-Gon managed to learn that skill somehow, but like you can see like Yoda kind of scratching the surface of it, so he's kind of like hearing it, but it's like he's feeling it, but he's not like there bear witnessing, I don't think. But it's just like that, hearing Qui-Gon's voice after all this time, but just hearing it in total horror. And it's just like, God, it's just gut-wrenching. And you hear Vader's theme playing out, behind all that. Yeah, and like once again, but like I mentioned in the previous video with Phantom Menace, how like Maul is like a personification of Vader's rage and raw force power, and labor, and saber skills. It brought manifested in real life. Dooku is like the politician and like the negotiator part of Vader's personality, and then Grievous is like the intimidation, the robot, monster of his part of his personality. Uh, yeah. Even though Anakin is whiny, a lot of the Skywalker family is kind of whiny, especially the guys. But it's coming from a place where it's like lack of trust from the council, lack of trust, lack of support from Kenobi, and it's like it does eventually drive them to the dark side. What do you expect? I mean, you said like it's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back, and it does not help to have like Sidious kind of like inflating his ego a bit and just, like a snake in a garden, really, like whispering in his ear and all the other stuff. That doesn't help. But it's like with the, was it dogma, line of thinking when it comes to the Jedi code, with like no attachments and like you gotta be a complete monk, and it's like you can't feel certain things. You can have compassion, but you cannot be allowed to feel certain things where it's human to feel. And it's like you cut yourself off of that. Of course, you're gonna pop at a certain point. And well, you think that why you're getting clouded by the force, because you resting on your laurels for such a long time, and you just like you're not seeing the forest through the trees. Padme's assertiveness and go-to-ness in here is like phenomenal. You can, even with her outfit in the third act, you can see like hints of Leia in it. It's like this is where you get Leia from. She gets it from her mother. The way that like I'm not a damsel in distress. I'm gonna rescue myself if I have to. As like that's your mom. I love that. Dooku's lightsaber, and like this is the second time you get like a unique look of a lightsaber with the curved hilt. And Christopher Plummer's talked to Lucas, because he, Christopher Plummer used to be in the army before he became an actor, and he mentions to Lucas like what like a sound a guy would make when being stabbed or cut or something like that. He wanted that like represented in the film and everything like that. I thought it was cool because like it's the way he wields his lightsaber is the same way he will wield a natural sword. That's why I think probably why it's curved like that. Cause I'm pretty sure he handled a handle from a blade like that in real life. I thought that was like a nice little touch. They always stuck with me after all this time with that little bit of know-how. It's one thing that you gotta give props to Lucas about when it comes to the prequel trilogy, is that in the original trilogy we never get the full extent of the Jedi skills in swordsmanship, whereas it's like tappy tap with their lightsaber and maybe a little motion here and there. But in the prequel trilogy, and since then moving forward, we see the Jedi a little more limber, more acrobatic, and there's more fluid in their motions rather than stilted, stances. And of course, it's different moves like martial arts when it comes to these swordsman skills the Jedi have, but by and large, you get to see them actually move a bit. Jar Jar manipulating into mercy. I mentioned this in the previous video of Phantom Menace, but it's, Jar Jar. Now I get why Jar Jar did it. I mean, of course he was manipulated, subtly manipulated, but you can't help but feel for him a little bit because he wanted to do something for Padme, and he felt like he was useless in his moment. But he felt like since Padme gave him like some leeway while she was gone, he used that power in order to like, because he thought like Palpatine was on the up and up. He figured like, what's the harm? We need like my friends need help. They need an army, and like giving Chancellor Palpatine emergency powers is the only way they can get that done. So it's like I can't fault him on his line of thinking, but it just did not pay off in the end, which resulted, if you look on the Wikipedia of Star Wars, what happened to Jar Jar at the end of all this said and done with the rise of the Empire, the Naboo people and the Gungans, completely exiled, excommunicado Jar Jar Binks. He's like the most hated Gungan in the galaxy right now, because it was him who gave Palpatine those powers in the first place that he obviously didn't relinquish and just utilized to help rule the galaxy. Now he's pretty much like, doing parties for kids or something just to get by kind of thing. It's just like he's completely like just down in the slums at this point. I don't know if, because I don't think anybody want to touch Jar Jar at this point, but as it stands right now, that's where he was after the whole Order 66 situation a few years after that went down. But nobody touched him since. But it's curious to know, like, I don't know how long Gungan's lifespan are, but maybe at some point, like, he was still alive during, like, Force Awakens, possibly. But, yeah, as annoying Jar Jar is, he did get, like, the raw end of the deal, and it's really effed up what happened. And it's like he got fooled just like everybody else, and there's no way anybody could have known that. It wasn't that. It's not like President Trump, how obvious how incompetent and evil he was. Palpatine was a lot more slicker than that and easily manipulate everybody. So it's like that I cannot fault Jar Jar on. Yeah, the political stuff throughout the prequel trilogy, even though they kind of died that down from, Clone Wars into Revenge of the Sith, but it's completely boring as hell. Even though you can be old enough to pay attention, more so than a kid, you'll probably be lucky to pick out a few things that's like informs the situation why they're doing what they're doing that sparks this war. But I think it's better well handled in the Clone Wars series. Yeah, you get to see Yoda really show this stuff, because you never get to. This is the first time we actually get to see Yoda and Mace Windu, but Yoda really show his stuff that was only talked about in Empire Strikes Back. And we get to see Yoda really kicking ass and utilizing his force powers to jump around and really move very quickly and acrobatically and just keep up pace with Dooku, and just, any slip up on Dooku's part, he will lose his head. That's how good, because he's playing, to be honest, Dooku was playing defense a lot of the ways. So he has to pull like a Deus Ex Machina by try to throw something at like the unconscious Kenobi and Anakin just to get Yoda off his back. But yeah, that's pretty much enough. So I pretty much mentioned everything I wanted to mention. But yeah, and there's problems in these prequels. Obviously, there's problems. But I think so much time went by, we let them marinate, and then with the help with the TV series, it's like it made them palatable for consumption. To where it's like we can actually enjoy it, but you're not fully, not on the same level as like the original trilogy or The Force Awakens or The Mandalorian, but it's still, we can still like find some modicum of enjoyment to where we don't look at it with disgust. But anyway, what do you guys think of Star Wars: The Attack of the Clones movie? And leave a comment below, smash that like button. does it still hold up to you? Do you like this film still? Do you still don't find it like watchable? I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are, because this, for the longest time, I did not. I mean, up until I don't know, in my mid 20s is when, like, mid to late 20s, when I figured, like, the Attack of the Clones wasn't that bad kind of situation. Maybe because I got a little older to understand a bit better, and maybe the Clone Wars series kind of helped. But when I was a kid, man, I think I hated Clone Wars more so than even Phantom Menace, if you can believe that. But yeah, even Phantom Menace, after a while, I did not hate as much as I used to as a kid. But yeah, I will see you guys some point next week when I put like a spoiler review for season 1 of the Clone Wars. So look forward to that, and have a good night, and I'll see you all soon.